Here on the left, we see a graph of the parent function, the square root function. So this is f of x equals the square root of x. Or you could write it as y equals the square root of x. If we think about what domain and range is, domain is the x coordinates and range is the y coordinates. So the domain is where is the graph left to right, like the x-axis. The range is where is the graph up and down, like the y-axis. So if we look at this blue graph and we think about domain, where does the graph start and where does it go, left to right? We see that it starts here at 0 on the x-axis and it goes on and on forever to the right. So the graph is not to the left of 0. All of the x coordinates are greater than or equal to 0. That's what we would say the domain is. And then as far as the range is, the graph starts on the y-axis at 0, and it just keeps on inching up further and further. We keep zooming out, we'll see it continues to inch up and up and up. But the graph is not below 0. So the whole range, y, is greater than or equal to 0. Now let's do one of these from the table on the right. Now let's notice what this table is telling us. Here for the square root of x plus 3, it's telling you that if you add a number after the square root of x, that's going to move it up. If you subtract a number, it's going to move it down. So this one, instead of starting at 0, it's going to start 3 units up from 0, right here, and then go on and on forever to the right. So the domain and range, let's think about what that is in this case. The domain, I'm just going to use a D. The domain is where is this graph left to right, and it's still starting on the x-axis at 0 and going on and on forever to the right. So it would still be x is greater than or equal to 0. How about the range though? Did the range change? The range is where the graph is up and down on the y-axis. Notice now that the graph starts at 3 on the y-axis, and then it goes up and up and up from there. So the range would be y is greater than or equal to 3. Let's do another. So notice in the second row of this table, it's telling us if we add or subtract a number underneath the square root, kind of within that function, that's going to move it to the right and left. So if we subtract a number, that moves it to the right, that many units. If we add a number, that moves it to the left. So if this blue line is just the square root of x, the square root of x minus 2 would be 1, 2. It would start right here. So let's think about how this changes the domain and range. Our domain is where is the graph from left to right. So the domain, this graph doesn't start at 0, it starts at x equals 2, and then it goes on and on to the right from there. So the domain would be everything, all of the x coordinates greater than or equal to 2. And then how about the range? The range is where is the graph up and down. This one still starts on the y-axis at 0, and then it goes up and up forever from there. So y would still be everything is greater than or equal to 0.